Hello and welcome back to the Horse Racing Network with me, Izzy Phillips, and I'm joined as always by racing broadcaster and journalist Paul Alster, and we're going to be taking a look ahead to Doncaster's St Leger Festival across the course of this week and this weekend. Paul, we've got quite some good little races here coming up for this. I'm quite excited about this. Have you had a little peek at the cards already?
Oh, yes, I've had a very good look through them. Of course, 4 days. It used to be, is it that they raced from Wednesday to Saturday? Um, and then they changed it a few years ago from Thursday to Sunday, which I think is better. It gives more people to be involved over the weekend at the
Yeah.
St Leger Festival. It's possibly, you could argue that maybe they could put the races into 3 days and make it a really hot 3 day festival. But at the moment, they've gone with the four, and we've picked out a total of three races across the 4 days that we're going to focus on here.
Yeah, we've got some really exciting ones, and we're going to kick things off on the Friday with the Doncaster Cup. So I think a really good looking race, a Group 1, run across 2 mile and 2 furlongs. And in here, Paul, we've actually got a horse that you quite liked the look of at Royal Ascot in here with Sweet William. And we've also got Hip Hop de Loire for Willie Mullins. Obviously, he ran last time out at York, obviously couldn't get the better of stablemate Ethical Diamond, and he's still quite well fancied in here. You've also got Sunway, he's turned up in a few big races this season. We've got Kyle of Loch Lash, Pendragon, Coltrane out again, and Oxford, and Tashkhan as well. So quite a small field, 8 runners at the moment. I quite like the look at the couple at the top of the market. You know how I feel about Willie Mullins runners. How do you feel about, especially that Hip Hop de Loire since his last run at York?
I'm not sure about him. I'll be honest, he's not one that I'd be running to back. He's just come up a bit short, is he, on those few runs? He was fifth in last year's Ebor, he was sixth in this year's Ebor. And you have to wonder if he can't win an Ebor off 103 or 106, how's he going to beat a 115 rated Sweet William off levels? Of course, it's a different type of a race. It's a pattern race that probably may be tactical. It might turn into a bit of a sprint. But he wouldn't be at the top of my list, I've got to be honest. Although I do think that booking of William Buick for Willie Mullins is a real eye catcher. But it's Sweet William that I think is the one they're really going to have to go to beat after his second to Trawlerman in the Lonsdale Stakes at York 3 weeks ago. And he was a good third before that in the Goodwood Cup and fourth in the Ascot Gold Cup. He's rock solid, and he won this race last year. So he's got a lot going for him because this is 2.25 miles, and there's plenty of horses that won't actually stay it if they go a proper gallop. Thing is, though, he's sort of top priced 11 to 8 at the time we're recording this. And I just wonder if the value might be with Sunway, the David Menicia trained runner, who is very unexposed at the trip. He's only had one run beyond 1.75 miles. His 1.75 mile run was when a close third in last year's St Leger behind Jan Bruegel staying on. They've run him 5 times this year, 4 times over 1.5 miles. He's only run at 2 miles. He finished as staying on fourth behind Scandinavia and only half a length behind Sweet William. So I think that maybe Sunway, probably going to come up at 5 to 1. I think he might be the each way bet to nothing at Doncaster in the Doncaster Cup that's named this year and indeed last year after a former colleague of mine from the press room, Howard Wright, who was a real proud Yorkshireman and was a terrific writer and journalist for so many years.
I really agree with you. I think that Sweet William looks like the class horse in the race this year. I think that obviously, like you say, that second to Trawlerman is the best form on offer, and certainly he looks like he should get the better of this field. I agree with you in terms of Hip Hop de Loire. I was really disappointed with his run in the Ebor, especially the price that he was kind of getting back towards. Although they did ask Willie Mullins in the parade ring before the race, out of the two, which one would you back? And he did say Ethical Diamond, which obviously caused a little bit of a price collapse on Ethical Diamond right before the off, because you listen when Willie speaks. But I think in here, I agree with you all the way. I'm not so sure on some way because David Manuse's horses are perhaps not in the best form. Gosden at the minute currently on a 20% strike rate, their team. So really it does look all systems go. However, there's one more trainer in here and a horse with a really consistent record, and that is Pendragon. So Mark Prescott currently operating at a 27% strike rate. Obviously, this is a big step up for Pendragon, but where is his ceiling? Obviously, look at the number of ones next to his name. He could have a very good chance in here. It is quite a weak race. So I actually quite like him, potentially a little bit of an each way fancy. He's currently around 10 to 1 at the time of recording. So he's the one that takes my eye if I was to look away from the favourite. But I think 11 to 8, which you can currently get. I mean, it was around 13 to 8, like you say, so he has been backed in a bit. Probably, I don't say I probably, we all would have preferred 13 to 8 than 11 to 8, but yeah, he can sometimes find one too good for him, Sweet William. I doubt it here, but if I was going to say that there's one that could spring a surprise for me, it would be Pendragon. So I'd probably go Pendragon each way, but Sweet William win. So hedging my bets a little bit there with those two runners.
I think he's an interesting runner. I mean, he does have quite a bit to find on the official figures, but as you say, maybe he will improve. Just a quick word as well about Old Coltrane. He's turning up again. He won it back in 2022, but his last two runs in this race have not been particularly good. And although he did win a listed race last time, I think he's up against it, but he's just a pleasure to watch. He always tries his hardest, but at 8, he's not getting any quicker.
Yes, and the one thing to mention as well is there is a little bit of rain in the air at the moment at Doncaster. They've had rain today, and the going is currently kind of good soft in places. There is rain around tomorrow as well, so that the ground on Friday, that going could have more ease in it than even it has now. So you could be looking at closer to a soft description if that rain particularly hits the track. There's a few showers around on Friday itself, but actually the weather on Saturday looks largely dry, so it could dry out a little bit again by the time we get to the St Ledger. And Saturday's where we're going to take a look at next. So we've got the Portland Heritage handicap that we're going to take a look at. It is a very unusual race actually. It's 5.5 furlongs, so it's that intermediate between those 5 furlong horses and those 6 furlong horses. So before we come on air, me and Paul were just saying that we think that you're either looking for a 5 furlong horse that looks like he wants a little bit further but perhaps not quite 6, or a 6 furlong horse that keeps coming up short. So a tricky task really here, Paul, especially with this season's sprinters, because the results have been all over the show. We haven't really had that kind of dominance this season. But who do you like here? We've currently got, I mean, there are 32 runners at the time of recording. A maximum of 22 can actually run. Got some really interesting ones at the top of the market, like Air Force One, Gerbat, Jordan Electrics, Rhythm and Hooves, a few that we've seen a few times this season, the likes of Aberama Gold. But you're like our handicap king on this show, so where would you go with this?
Well, it is a tough race, of course. And as you point out, 32 runners at the time we're looking at this, but only a maximum of 22 can run. And number 22 on the card is the one they put in at favourite at the moment, Air Force One. Jeff Oldroyd has had a fabulous season. He's got a stunning strike rate this year. And this one's only just missed out on his last 2 runs in big races at the Ebor Festival. And then again last week at York, where he got nabbed right on the lolly by Al Zahir, who I think is amongst a number that could go again from that race. I think they're both likely to go well, but I'm not going to go through too many in the race. But the one that I do think has got a proper chance, and as you mentioned, Izzy, that intermediate 5.5 furlong trip, I think it could be perfect for Rhythm and Hooves. For Robert Cowell and Billy Loughnane, they teamed up, horse and jockey, 4 weeks ago to win at Newbury. They've gone up £4 for that, Rhythm and Hooves, but he previously run really well over the very stiff 5 furlongs at Ascot, just beaten by Cover Up. He has won over 6 in the past, and I think this could be the really perfect trip for him, a strongly run 5.5 furlongs, and I think he'll be coming home strong. And at the time we're recording this, he's about a 14 to 1 shot each way. So Rhythm and Who's for Sprint King Robert Cowell, who of course specialises in the real speed merchant. He'd be the one for me here.
Do you feel like there's any kind of draw bias with a sprint like this when you're
It's hard.
looking at Doncaster, Paul?
It's hard to know, really. And I suppose after the first day, for those people that are going to be having a bet on the Friday, it might be worth waiting for the end of action on Thursday, because you'll be able to get some sort of a view of if there is a bias on the track to either the far side or the stand side. Sometimes there is one side or the other. It depends if they've watered or just how the track is draining, especially if there's rain. But I think you just have to assume at this point that it is going to be a fair spread across the track and take your chance.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I always think about when I look at these sprints, especially this season, because they've all been so inconsistent. And actually, when you look at some of the hard luck stories from earlier in the season, if you go back to the Newmarket July or even Ascot, a lot of the ones that perhaps haven't performed, it's been put down to, well, the draw wasn't in their favour. So that's why I asked, because it's something that I think I'm keeping an eye on here when I'm looking at the sprints now. But certainly one that's been super consistent this season is Trefor. For me, I quite like the look of. Again, the only difficulty I'm having is I'm following informed trainers. This is what I'm doing these days. So Charles Hill's not having the most winners at the moment, but a good horse is a good horse, and he's quite well fancied at the minute, around 8-1. And you've got Kieran Schumacher on board, rides really, really well for Charlie Hill. So Trefoil for me, just on his consistency. But yeah, I think I'd like to see what happens with the weather and what happens if there is anything going on with the draw before I would go for a really firm selection here. I'd probably have firmer selections kind of elsewhere on the weekend, but a really interesting race to kick us off for our Saturday preview.
Just one point there, if I can just mention it, Izzy, that you mentioned Charles Hills. Now, his father, the late Barry Hills, was a real master trainer. Charles is also terrific. But Barry Hills always used to target the St. Ledger meeting, and he used to prepare horses to run at their very best at Doncaster. And that's something that has, for me, really paid its way time and time again. Indeed, I won the press room challenge some years ago by just putting in some Barry Hills horses in all the big handicaps, and one popped up at 40-1 or something. So that was enough for me to scoop the pot and end up having a decent holiday that autumn. So worth remembering, because I know Charles Hills follows very much the patterns that his father used to swear by and swear at as well, apparently. So Charles Hills, keep an eye on his runners throughout the week at Doncaster.
We actually visited Charlie Hill's stable when we did our Lambourne Open Day visit, which you can see if you take a look on our channel. But yeah, it was a really enjoyable visit. And as you say, obviously very, very successful father, Barry Hills. All of his medals, awards and accolades are all proudly displayed at the stable. It's absolutely beautiful. So if you haven't been to Charlie Hills and you get the opportunity to go there on the Lambourne Open Day when it's next on, then please do head there, because it is a real experience. Lots of history and lots of heritage as well. And now we're going to take a look at the big race on the card, the big race of the weekend, really, when it comes to British racing, and that is the St. Ledger. Obviously, it was won by Aidan O'Brien last year with Jan Bruegel, but it's all changed, even though that was Sean Levy on board on that occasion. We know this year we've got no Ryan Moore due to injury. So it's a really interesting card, Paul, because I think we're all trying to guess who's going to be booked where. Obviously, Christophe Soumillon should be top jock at the minute for Aidan O'Brien. And I guess we're all waiting to see where his initials fall on the race card, to see whether it's going to be Scandinavia or is it going to be Lambourne that's most fancied by the Aidan O'Brien team. But in there as well, you've also got Karmas, Stay True, Further, Rahib, Tariance and Saratoga in there as well. Again, I may add potential, obviously, pacemaker in the field there with Saratoga. So what do you make of this? Are you just waiting to see what Christophe Soumillon rides, or do you have a firm selection elsewhere?
I think it will be interesting. I think we expect Christophe to ride Scandinavia. I think it'd be a surprise if he turned up on Lambourne. and I expect that Sean Levy will probably ride Lambourne. Uh, we'll have to see. Of course, Wayne Lorden is also not available because he's suspended. So Aidan with all sorts of shuffling of the pack to do. Now, 8 runners, as you pointed out, declared at the 5 day stage. Whether all 8 will run, I don't know. I think we might end up with 6 or 7. But I think Scandinavia is certain to go. He's trying to build on that Goodwood Cup success. That came at 2 miles, of course. Is he going to be as effective over a mile and 3/4? Remember, the last time he ran the trip, he was beaten into 5th by Karmers, who's in the field. That was in the Queen's Vase at Royal Ascot. And obviously, Scandinavia put up a cracking performance at Goodwood. But he looked a proper galloper, a proper cup horse. And if it becomes even mildly tactical, I just wonder if Lambourne is going to bounce back, because clearly he wasn't ready at York in the Great Voltigeur, where he went out like, well, that's not fair. He didn't go out like a light. He just had nothing more to give. He just was very one-paced in the closing stages, the kind of effort of a horse that's a gallop short, really. And of course, the Ledger has been the target. He's won 2 derbies. I mean, he was terrific at Epsom and he grounded out at the Curragh. I think he'll stay. And I think he's just got that touch of class. Remember, he's rated £3 higher than Scandinavia as well. So for me, the pick of the Aidan O'Brien quartet is Lambourne. Although I would say that I think Stay True is open to some improvement. He's only had the 3 runs. He was beaten a short head in the Lingfield Derby trial. He was only beaten just over a length in the Great Voltigeur. So arguably, he's a horse that's improving pretty fast. Karmers, we know stays. He won over the trip at Royal Ascot. He was only beaten a length at York, when again, he too might not have been fully primed for this. So I can't really have Rahib, Tariance, or Saratoga. Further, of course, is closely tied in with Karmers on their Ascot running and won again last time out. But if I had to have a bet on the race, which I probably will, as long as the odds are about right, I'd be going with Lambourne, just because he's got that touch of class. And I think they need him to win in order for him to really boost his stallion potential, which I think is going to come as a national hunt stallion, really, not as a flat stallion. So for me, Lambourne to beat Scandinavia.
Yeah, I think that my heart is with Lambourne because I think he's been such a consistent horse this season. I obviously expected a lot more of him last time out, so I was disappointed by his run, as I think many were. And I don't know if you managed to catch the racing in France this weekend just gone, Paul, the Arc Trials, but if you were watching that and you're looking at the current jockey situation as well, you would say that things don't really seem to be going Aidan O'Brien's way. And that's not something we are usually able to say in racing because he's ever so consistent. And obviously, even now, he's operating at around a 17% strike rate. But it just doesn't seem like even the best of his horses are performing to the level that they usually do. So I do have some concerns about the form of Aidan O'Brien going into this weekend. And for that reason, I do really fancy Karmers. I know you quite liked the look of Karmers last time. You've got no Pride of Arras in the race here, although you could potentially be saying that he's a bit of a course specialist at York. Karmers ever so consistent. Talking about trainer form, Patrick Toomey is 38% win rate at the moment. Not huge numbers of runners and winners, but 3 winners out of 8 runners. That's some great race placement by him. And I think potentially if the Aidan O'Brien runners don't turn up and things do go wrong here, I think Karmers will kind of be right there ready to take the spoils. And I think that he's a really, really nice price at the minute, around 9-2. Again, could have been a bit bigger. And it could be with this form of Aidan O'Brien at the weekend and what happened in the racing in France that he's actually been backed in a little bit. So yeah, I think Karmers for me. I'm a little bit concerned. My heart tells me Lambourne, and I feel the same as you. I want him to solidify a good season into a great season. But yeah, I think for me, something's just telling me Karmers with this one.
Well, we'll see. He certainly is a horse that as you mentioned, I've liked very much, and I can see him being bang there. We'll see whether he's got the Group One class about him when he is put up to try and defeat two previous Group One winners, Scandinavia and Lambourne. I think it's going to be a small but select race, and as you say, Aidan O'Brien's form maybe not at the peak. Um, I always wonder, with those trial races in France, you're not going to have your horses at their very best because they're trials for the art meeting. But some of them ran poorly. Whirl, for example, was very poor. And I suppose punters will be watching the first 2 days at Doncaster, where Aidan's scheduled to have quite a number of runners. If they see them underperforming, then I think there could be a bit of a rush on your selection, Karmas. I think there could be. If, however, Aidan's horses bounce back to form, then you might be able to get a proper each way 5-1 price about it.
Absolutely, but that is all we have time for on our Doncaster St Ledger Festival preview. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned on the channel because we will be taking a look at Irish Champions Weekend as well.